Welcome to Lakonia, visitor. You're here to learn about Spartan society, yes? Then I won't stop you. Sparta had a unique hierarchy, especially compared to the rest of Greece. Everyone had their place, and you will soon learn what those places were. I will find you again once your visit has ended. Until then, visitor.
Spartan society was structured around austerity, self-sufficiency, and a hostility towards foreign elements. It was divided into three social classes: citizens, Perioikoi, and Helots. Citizens were called Spartans, or Homoioi. They were free men and women with mostly equal rights and wealth, though their contributions to political life were extremely limited. The Perioikoi lived in surrounding areas under Spartan control. They cultivated the land and were primarily merchants and craftsmen. They were also part of the army, and their lands were the first line of defense in the event of a hostile attack. Helots were Sparta's lowest class. They were people who had lost their freedom to the Spartans, and they served the city as slaves. Helots were considered property instead of people. As a result, they had no political or civil rights. Helots made up the majority of Sparta's population. According to Polydeuces, they lingered between slavery and freedom. Two elements made Helots differ from other slaves. They were allowed to form their own families, and they were publicly owned by the city of Sparta instead of private citizens. Because Helots were deemed public property, they could not be sold as merchandise. They mostly worked to cultivate the land, but also fought in wars alongside the Spartans. While they gave the fruits of their labor to Sparta, they also kept a fair part of it for themselves. This practice allowed some Helots to make enough money to buy their own freedom. Alternatively, if a Helot served the state well enough in military campaigns, they could also be granted civil rights. The founding of Sparta is dated around the 9th century BCE. Historical information about the city is limited, but it was known to extend into the region of Lakonia. Over time, Sparta started encroaching on the territory of Messenia, eventually leading to war. Sparta gained more land in this conflict, which they divided between their citizens and the Perioikoi. The aftermath of the Second Messenian War, from 640 to 620 BCE, then divided the population into three groups: the Homoioi, the Perioikoi, and the Helots. The Helots of Lakonia mostly respected Sparta's rule and did not cause much trouble. However, Helots from Messenia supposedly resisted the Spartans, although sources can only confirm one revolt for certain, which occurred in Messenia in 464 BCE.
Ή εξόριξαντο της φρικτής εκ των κατόγιων Λακωνίων. Ότι ούν αγία, μοίρα, τεινά κοσμήματα εκλεκτά. Είδα τεχνουργών ποιούντα βασκάνια και λεξιτήρια χαρίεντα. Είδα την αδυνάμενον ανεφρήν σύγκλα σκία είναι ωραία. Μηδενός αντιθύμου σχεδόν. Πολύ συντάκτα σύντομα προστασία.
Άνεμον διώκεις, ο άνθρωπε!
Τι λαμβάνει η χώρα?
Και την άλλον φέρει να φύγει. Και γεννηθεί το.
Το άδικο νεστήλ.
During the 5th century BCE, Helots were quite active in the army, especially during the Peloponnesian War. They served as hoplites on land and as rowers during naval battles. In both cases, they gave Sparta an important numerical advantage. For every Spartan on the battlefield, there were at least 7 Helots. Although many ancient sources say Spartans had a hostile relationship with Helots, they were much more likely to treat them better in times of war. For example, when 300 Helots and 120 elite Spartans were captured by Athens during the Battle of Sphacteria in 425 BCE, the Spartans promised the Helots their freedom if they served them well in combat. Similarly, around the same time, the Spartan general Brasidas fought a battle alongside 700 Helots. Impressed by their courage and loyalty, Brasidas later freed them all and allowed them to join the Perioikoi. Perioikoi were another group of Sparta's population. They lived not in the city itself, but in its surrounding areas. The Perioikoi were never hostile against the Spartans. In fact, both groups together were known by the collective name Lacedaemonians. Perioikic cities had their own autonomy and sanctuaries, but they were always bound to Sparta. They were allowed to develop their own local laws and economies, but could never reach a level of prosperity that rivaled their parent state.
Έχομεν κατά μονοπόλιον λίγδους παρείας και λιχνίτας πεποιημένους της πετροτόμης ή εξορίξαντο της φρικτής εκ των κατόγιων λατομείων. Έχομεν μάρμαρον πολύστικτον χίωθεν, φλεψί επί διασχιζούσες ίον το σώμα. Είδα την αδυνάμενον ανευρήν σι φλασκία ίνου ωραία, μηδενός αντιτίμου σχεδόν. Πολύ σι ταύτασί το αμαξοστασίο.
Αμφιβολίαν έχω. Έμπορες άπαντες πολλούσι παρεμπορεύματα. Και άπαντες υπισχνίστε την γέαν άπασαν. Άνωθεν κάτωθεν εις άπασαν την αγοράν.
Προείπων σι Περιακίων, λίγδους παρείας και λιχνίτας πεποιημένους της πετροτόμης ή εξορίξαντο της φρικτής των κατόγιων λατομείων. Έχομεν κίνας λιμιλάτας λακωνισθέν.
Χαίρετε και καλώς ήλθετε εις το μείζον πολιτήριον ενταυτή.
I see you finished. I hope you have a better appreciation for Spartan society. Nothing we do is without reason, and every man, woman, and child has a role to play. What would you like to do? Then you may leave. Farewell, visitor.
Και δηλαδή εξαμπολόμενε τη δύση τυρά, αναζητήσατε εσύ των ηλαίων. Πώς γάρεξι και το και περισσή ναυτική από...
Ο αιμός αδελφός λέγει πως μήματα δυνάμενος φέρει εις το άρτιον τιμία, πλεμπόρων μύτες και μεταφράζεται απολύσει.
Greetings, visitor. You stand in Sparta's political center, where all of the city's most important decisions were made. You should feel honored. Sparta's political system was unique in the Greek world. While Athenians wasted hours on end whining and wagging their tongues at each other, Spartan kings made their decisions swiftly and deliberately. They preferred action over words. Come find me again when you finish your visit. We will speak more then. Farewell.
Sparta's political system differed from most of Greece's. One of its most distinctive features was that it was ruled by two kings. These kings belonged to two separate dynasties, the Eurypontids and the Aegeads, both of which were said to be descended from Heracles. Both kings shared equal powers, and disputes between them required the intervention of special magistrates known as Ephors. However, if one of the kings were more charismatic or experienced, they could influence the weaker king's choices. Spartan kings had several responsibilities and functions. As lifetime magistrates, they were technically Sparta's priests and strategists, and their duties encompassed everything from politics to justice. Originally, both kings would lead military campaigns in times of war. However, from 507 BCE onwards, only one of the two kings could be head of the army. On the battlefield, kings were accompanied by 300 elite soldiers for protection. But being a king wasn't only about working and fighting, they enjoyed special privileges as well. Spartan kings lived at the expense of the city, owned royal estates in the surrounding Perioikoi cities, and received the majority of the spoils of war. When they passed away, they were buried with special honors, and the population mourned them for a period of 10 days.
Ιούν επιθυμείτε ο άντρες και γυναίκες, δύναμε φέρει νημήν. Μη λυπήστε, επί το επιθυμητόν ουκ και βρίσκεται.
The kings of Sparta enjoyed many important religious honors. They were in charge of sacrifices, both during military campaigns and at home. The kings received double portions of the meat at all communal meals, and they were also the first to pour libations. They also personally conducted public sacrifices as priests, which helped remind their subjects of their divine connection to Heracles and Zeus.
Είναι ο πρεσβύτερος. Πέθηκε άπαντα αδιαβία.
The Ephors, or overseers, were 5 magistrates elected by the Spartan assembly. They were chosen from among Spartan citizens over 30 and served for 1 year with no possibility of re-election. The Ephors played a large part in administrating the city and were considered the most democratic agents in the Spartan political system. They had judicial power and ordered the dispatching of the Spartan army during wars. They also met and negotiated with representatives from other states, in addition to running the agoge, the Spartan education system. While not as powerful as the 2 kings, the Ephors still held great sway over Sparta's affairs. The Gerousia was the Spartan Council of Elders. It was made up of the 2 current kings, as well as 28 elders called Gerontes. They were Spartan citizens over the age of 60, the cutoff age for military duty. They were elected for life by the Spartan Assembly. The Gerousia, similar to Athens' Boulé, handled legislative and financial matters. It could submit bills and motions to the Assembly, and could also cancel Assembly decisions with the power of veto. To ensure that the right of veto did not weaken the Assembly, Ephors were introduced to keep the Gerousia in check and maintain a steady balance of power. This allowed Sparta to include more just elements in its political system.
Τι γίνεται?
Βάζγανε έναν ποικιλία αντίον εγώ να αργύρω.
Ποσός οίκος ή
μόνες κλεφτριδίων εσμέν. Φήμοι διαδέμονται επί το λιμένα.
Εν χάβε εσμέν γουν.
Δέσποινε και κύριοι πολίτε, έχουμε γειτόνας, περικαλύπτοντας το ιδιαίτερο σώμα.
Ήκου εσάν ότι η Γάλλη μου...
Κατανοώ ότι η θέλη σας
Προσθέτει εντός του Μενγούν. Πιστεύεις ότι έχει... Άπα, για πε μου.
The Spartan Assembly, or the Appella, was made up of Spartan citizens who were over 30 years old. Its exact meeting place remains unknown, but it was presided over by a special member of the Ephors called the eponymous Ephor. The Appella had limited authority, since any decision it made could be overruled by the Gerousia. But thanks to the efforts of the Ephors, it still played an important role in Spartan society. The Appella dealt with topics like foreign affairs, war declarations, peace negotiations, and more. They also elected Ephors and Gerousia members, and could both grant political rights to foreigners and remove them from Spartan citizens. Unlike the myriad sources on the functions of the Athenian Assembly, the exact details of the Appella's decision-making process are unknown.
Αλλά όμως επανέλεγε στον πίεση. Αν προσλάβει την αντικολάβων επαρχιακό, μας λαθώντας άντρες.
Και δεν αντιλαμβανόμεθα ότι
I see you finished. I hope you feel more knowledgeable about the inner workings of Spartan politics. Our way of ruling was not conventional, to say the least. But it served our purpose as well. What would you like to do? Farewell, visitor. May your travels be safe and carefree.
Ότι διατάρτα στον εύθετο συζύγους είναι μόνον χρεολόγηση.
Τι έστειλε η πίστη. Πάλι τώρα και την άλλον φέρει να βήματα. Είπε η γεννηθήτω.
Ως θεείς τα άπαντα στους φέροντας άπαντα. Λέξος η τιμή επιθυμία και ο Σάβιον εγγύησε ότι σχέδιος σας
Ο εμός αδελφός λέγει πως μήματα δυνάμει
Επικαλούμε σε μάκαρ, πολιόνιμε, πυρήπολε.
Τι γίνεται?
Ήκουσα ότι αδύνατο διεκτέμνουν και διαμελίζουν το πτώμα μέχρι σου εξύπταντο τα πλευρά και το κρέας. Ήκουσα ότι...
Τι τούτο είναι?
το καρτερί.
Τι συνέβη μόλις?
Μόνον όταν το επιχείρημα δομείται πιστικών, τότε δίνεται αν κερδάνε ένα ζήτημα. Ανατρέχομενοι στους τραγικούς της δομής ταύτης ένεκεν, μάλλον η Σοφοκλέα.
Χρώμεθα το παραδείγματι των έργων αυτού, ή να αντιβάλλομεν το δέον γένεστε εις την αν συλλογισμών. Άλλο της θέμηδος ναός, ουκ εστί πανήγυρη.
Ήταν ηλικιωθεί. Τραπεζίτης έσαμε. Και τον της εταίρης ποιο τον χρήσε.
Μάλλον το αίμα αυτό λέγω φέτο. Μάλλον αυτό πίστευε, λέγω αίμα σώστας. Δίδομαι δε και θυσίης εν πόλα.